Welcome to Club Fitting Chronicles.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Club Fitting Chronicles. I am Josh, joined here with Gene per usual. How are you, Gene?
I'm good. I'm getting ready to go on vacation pretty soon. If you're one of our listeners in Michigan, you might see me at Whispering Willows or Salem Hills in the upcoming weeks. If you're in central Illinois, Litchfield area, I don't know where we're playing, but we're playing a couple of days. Supposed to play in Iowa next, first of all, but right now they're only predicting like 400 days of rain there. So I don't know that.
Only? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know that I don't like swimming on the golf course.
It's not really the first thing that comes to mind when I think of...
No, it's not my favorite way to play golf when, you have to pour the water out of your shoes after each shot.
Well, you got to invest in golf rain boots.
That's true. I could get some maybe like gutter nails.
You know what you could get is those overalls that those guys who dive for cranberries use. They get one of those.
Yeah.
Very versatile.
I would probably be striking quite a pose out there.
I don't think it'd be very restrictive, man. I would think it'd actually free you up, if anything. Yeah.
So, and just for our listeners, we'll be doing our recording of how to build a golf club next time. Josh is like slammed because everyone's on vacation except for him.
Everybody goes on vacation but me. That's just how it goes.
So you get everybody else's hours.
And you know what? That's good for me.
But do they give you their 24-hour days? Or do you just have to fit their time into your slot?
Well, if you could believe it, both at the same time.
Okay.
But nonetheless, in the next video, it'll be very interesting to see, because I haven't really gone in depth with any of that stuff with Eugene. I mean, bits and pieces of it, putting on a club head or changing out a shaft, things like that. But it'll be interesting to see just the exact science and engineering goes into building golf clubs.
Yeah, and we're going to do it in the simplest way possible. So if you have little to no tools, well, you'll still be able to follow along and do what we're doing. So today we're going to talk about component companies.
Beautiful.
And I kind of group them into two categories. And one category, I use the term open source. And that's partly because you see multiple companies carry those heads, and you see multiple names on the back of the clubs that are very, very similar to one another. It would be like having a Josh head, and has this shape, and then there's a Gene head, and it has virtually the exact same shape, but the names on the backs are totally different, and the lofts are the same. Everything else is the same, and generally speaking, they're designs that have been around for a long time. And so that's what I consider an open source. I assume somebody a while ago kind of made them available to other people, because otherwise they would, if there was a copyright on it, that would probably end up being a problem for somebody. And then there's the original designers. And those are companies that, whether they have in-house design or they hire designers to come in and design heads for them. But those heads, you don't find that head sold by company A, company B, company C. It's only sold by the parent company, the company who commissioned the head to be made. So with that, there was one thing I wanted to share. Each of those companies offer other things. Some of them are heads only. Some of them you can get shafts, you can get epoxy, you can get ferrules, you can get everything you would ever want for a golf club. And so when you're looking at different things, it's, like I ordered some equipment for a young girl, high school girl. I taught her a couple years ago, and she's made the varsity golf team, and she grew, but her clubs didn't. and she got stronger, and her club shafts are still really soft, junior shaft. So we're redoing her clubs. But I bought the heads from one company. I bought shafts from another company for her irons. I bought shafts from another company for her woods, and also her grips. So sometimes it's mixing and matching between those companies. Sometimes, I can go right to one company and get everything I want. It really, I don't want people to be limited by going, well, I looked at this and I didn't like any. Well, look at others. So the one thing I was talking with Bill the other day, and he said I had to share this story. So you know how right now TaylorMade, all their shafts look the same. They're supposed to be a Fujikura. What's the name?
The Ventus?
The Ventus, yeah.
Yeah.
They're all painted exactly the same. Years ago, when I was invited out to Torrey Pines when they were playing the, I think it was still the Buick at that time, went into the UST van, and they had, I think at that time it was the R1 driver was the big driver, or it might have even been the, what was it called? I hate getting older. Anyway, they had like 4 of their shafts. Name was on them, but they were all painted the same as the stock shaft for that TaylorMade driver. And my guess is not everybody is playing a Ventus Blue, because if you look at all the different swings of the people using that shaft, they're not the same. You have some very rhythmic guys. You have some really go after it guys. So one of the things that, people tend to think, they think that there's magic in that club. That shaft was, it's the only shaft that works in that head. That's not true. A lot of times, like if I would have walked through the TaylorMade van, I'm sure I would have seen multiple versions of the same shaft, but with different names on them. But the names are printed so small, you can't see that on television. You could only see it if you were holding it and looking. Oh my goodness, look at that. That's a UST this. So I just wanted to, people tend to think that the stuff that is in the clubs that are being played is special. It was designed for that. No, they're not special. And not every tour player is playing the same shaft. That would make no sense. But if you notice, every TaylorMade player is playing the same colored shaft, which doesn't necessarily make it the same shaft. But Bill found that fascinating, and he said, you've got to share that. So, okay, there, I shared. Thoughts before we go on?
No, I mean, I do want to mention something for the shafts. You're talking about every single one of them playing a Ventus Blue shaft. Got it. Yeah, that is something you see.
Same.
I see so many players out there with the Ventus Blues nowadays.
And if you go to Fujikura's website, that's not the Ventus Blue paint job.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that was kind of, again, do I have absolute proof? No. But I have proof that they did it before. And my guess is they're doing it again. Because, again, that's how Americans buy golf clubs. They look to see what their favorite pro is playing, and that must be perfect for them.
Exactly.
So when you're looking at shafts with some of the companies, you're going to see some of them are going to carry some major brands. Some of them are going to carry some older major brands. And some of them are going to carry lesser known shafts than that you've never heard of. Just because you haven't heard of it doesn't make it a bad shaft. There are some shafts, you hit some shafts when we were doing your very first demo of different shafts. You hit a FST shaft. What's FST? Well, it happens to be owned by KBS, but you might find some, their FST is kind of like They don't advertise, they don't put a lot of money in it, but there are a lot of them out there to be bought. They're, you know, when I'm advertising a shaft, I get a tour player to play it and it's recognizable, the price goes up. Well, am I going to sell a lot of those? Maybe, maybe not. But when I have like you have all these different companies that are buying, having all these shafts available, they go through them pretty quickly because they're priced pretty well. You could buy an FST shaft, 110 gram, 115 gram shaft for $10, or you could buy the FST or the KBS version for 25. The KBS red label is on and all that other stuff. The other shaft, no, you don't have that special label. But it's important for those people that are looking at those things not to discount them because I've never heard of them. Things to look for when I'm looking at young lady that I'm working with. I found there were 3 shafts I thought would work for her. One was a lesser named shaft. It was $30. One was a lesser named shaft. It was $50. And one was a lesser named shaft, and it was $20. Now, we ended up going with the $20 one because of the most important part of the shaft, the color. She was very much into having the right colors. But looking at the profiles, all of those profiles were the same. And there were some other shafts that cost $70 and $80 and $90 that were similar. We went through that before with your shafts when we were looking at the profile of the shaft.
Sure.
I laugh when I read the literature about, this shaft delays releasing. How does it do that?
How does it know when to delay?
Exactly. All it knows is how hard was I swinging at the ball and when did I release my hands?
Exactly.
The shaft is going to start slowly bending forward. There is no memory in the shaft. None of that happens. As long as the thing doesn't fall apart when I pick it up, generally speaking, it can be a decent shaft. But things that I need to be aware of, and we've talked about these things in the past, torque. Most of the companies are going to tell you what the torque is. Now, again, what's the one problem with torque? There's no standard in how it's measured. But generally speaking, if you are a rhythmic swinger, 4 to 4.5 degrees of torque is not too much. If you're somebody like Josh who comes unglued and body parts go flying and people just are in awe of how did he ever swing that hard? Okay, a 4.5 will feel like it's wrapping around your neck. So you need something in the high 2s, low 3s. Many tour players, when graphites first started coming out, were playing 3.5s, 4.5s, and still to this day. So torque is going to give you an idea of the stiffness of the shaft. The higher the number, for a slow swinging 70 mile an hour, 5.0 is not too great of a torque number. But if it's somebody swinging at 90 miles an hour, it's going to feel a little loose. Another important thing, the weight. One of the things that weight also does is the heavier something is, the stiffer it tends to play because there's more of it there. So just understanding when I'm looking at shafts, I'm looking at the torque, I'm looking at the weight, and then a lot of times they'll be described. High launch, medium launch, low launch. That's giving me an idea of the tip stiffness. High launch, softer tip. Mid launch, kind of a in between, and low launch, a much stiffer tip. It's interesting. There are more shafts coming out that the shaft profile is in the actual area that kick is normally described in. It's starting off softer, and then at the very end of closer to the tip end, it gets stiff there, and that feels a little bit smoother for most golfers. It's like that Newton shaft that I had you swing.
Sure.
You swung a 70 mile an hour shaft. it didn't feel comfortable to you because you really go after it. But if I gave you another a soft shaft like that, it would not feel nearly as comfortable as the Newton. And it's because the tip section, the very end of the tip section, gets a little stiffer. So those are things that you want to look for in shafts. There are some places online that you can go and find profiles of shafts, and you can match up profiles. In the past, I have a lot of older shaft profiles. I don't have many of the new shaft profiles. But understanding the cost of the shaft is largely determined by two things. Number one, who's playing it on tour? That's a big selling point, because when Jose Maria Olazabal won the Masters many, many moons ago, he was playing this yellow and purple shaft. I don't know if you remember the Pro Force, but it was like you could pole vault with it. It was a piece of rebar. And Olazabal won the Masters the next day, and this was back in, I think, in the late 80s, maybe the early 90s. Golfsmith got orders for 19,000 of them.
Wow.
Why? Because everyone saw it on television, and it was identifiable. That was the first really identifiable paint job done on a shaft, and guess what's happened ever since? Why does TaylorMade paint every? I'm almost positive that all their shafts, they're painted the same. Number one, most of the companies have gotten away from having endless selections. Just costs too much. So if I'm watching player X and he's using this shaft, and player Y and he's using this shaft, I want that with that shaft. Well, they're not offering that anymore. So now they think everyone's playing the same shaft I'm getting.
Yeah.
Probably not the case. Other thoughts?
I think a lot of it too has to do with the kind of designer undertone a lot of these companies are marketing for. Like a lot of these newer golfers, they don't go based off of what the right profile of the shaft is. They go based off of how cool it looks, and is it a stiff, or is it an extra, or is it a regular, or is this a standard? The typical questions that uneducated ones may say. But I think that has to do a lot with, on top of the players, the favorite players, like Ricky Fowler fans, for example, the diehard Ricky Fowler fans, when he was in his prime back in 2013 to 2016, whenever it was, everybody started wearing orange Puma stuff.
Yep.
Or they had those orange Puma head covers, hats, and everything. So it's cool to see how trends are started by either players on tour or the companies that market with those players. It's very interesting.
The only thing is when the golfing public falls for the advertisement of this will work for me.
Sure. Well, look at Nike, for example. Nike is a prime example of that. I mean, when Tiger started playing Nike had nothing to do in the golf game before him. And then all of a sudden now Nike is it's gotten away from golf nowadays. And that goes back into the conversation we had last episode of companies that come and go, right? They were a huge sale force back in the early 2000s to early 2010s, but now they're kind of dissolved in the golf world. But they're a prime example of that. Everybody, with the Nike drivers, the Covert, the red drivers, you talk about paint jobs, cool paint jobs. I remember the Nike Covert, that dark maroon red, glossy, shiny head. And the Vapor Flies, I think they were, the bright blue. I mean, just really cool clubs. Still, I mean, I would play one today if I really had the choice. I love the color. But that is just another example of how those things may pertain to one's taste in buying a golf product.
Yep. We're going to get into heads now, and I want to kind of go into who are the companies that you'll see. Again, my version or my name, open source. And again, most of these, the heads you're going to find with those companies, they're usually, iron heads are probably starting at $15 a head. might go up to like 25 or 30, $35 on some heads. Drivers, titanium driver that conforms to the rule of golf. It's listed on the USGA page. Probably starting at about $80. They don't have to cost you 3 arms and 2 legs. So companies that I've used the most, you'll find they have shafts, they have everything that's available. Value Golf, same thing. Both of them, in fact, and also then there's a company called Monark. All of them will build clubs for you, and they'll do it. It's like $15 above the cost of the equipment, the heads. So it's pretty reasonable. You can buy like a 7-iron for brand new for right around $45-50 if you wanted to try out a certain weight, certain shaft. You could, if you didn't like that shaft, you could pull it out of the head and order another shaft for pennies on the dollar compared to the major manufacturers. Monarch also has, my guess is they have bought out some old companies, Bang, because you can buy Bang drivers there. You can buy Geek drivers there. You can buy Warrior golf heads there. So they have a large selection. But the cool thing about some of these companies, like the open source, the boy that I work with, left-handed, needs loft. Okay, hard to find things for a left-hander, but I was looking for something 13, 14, even up to 15 degrees of loft, because he tends to hood the club a little bit at impact, and trying to teach him not to do that. So I was looking for that, needed something a little bit closed, and I was able to find a 450 cubic centimeter driver, and I didn't want a huge driver because with a long face, because that just gives him more room to hit it all over the face. I wanted him to, be a little bit more precise, pinpointing, try to hit it on center. I built him a driver for $80. And we went out to the driving range the other day to test it out. And he hit a couple of drives in the 150 range, 160, which for him is very good. And, but again, which major manufacturer can I go to find a 14-degree left-handed driver, 1 degree closed?
For that price.
For that. And then throw in for that price. You can't find it. It's non-existent. Some of the original, and I didn't go through all the 20 companies that we presented the other day. With original designs, Wishon. I just bought a Wishon driver for the young lady, 13 degrees, 2 degrees shut. KZG, Golfworks, Epon, Swing Science, Golfworks, all of those companies. Golfworks is the one company that will build for you. The others, I'll be honest, they probably won't sell to you. But if you are a club fitter, they would sell to you. But you could also find somebody who is using that, because that equipment, generally speaking, is going to cost you less to get even fit for. With Wishon's, he was the first to come out with a forged head. He milled out the back of the forged iron and to give it perimeter weighting. And that was back in like 2003 or 2004. I used to sell those with, at the time, Project X was probably the most expensive iron shaft, or an Aerotech shaft. And I would sell them for like $135 for a forged head, Project X shaft, or Aerotech shaft. That's a pretty good price. And I'm going to guess that you can still get some of that. I was a little disappointed with having to pay the tariff on it because it comes out of England. There are a lot, Grindworks. You can go and get, that's what Captain America. Oh, I always forget his name.
Patrick Reed.
Patrick Reed, thank you. Patrick Reed played Grindworks. You can get Grindworks and they'll build clubs for you. You can go to New Level. They'll build clubs for you. You can go to, Takomo. They'll build clubs for you. SMT. You can buy their heads. Or they'll build it for you. A lot of good options. A lot of them will give you the ability to get a little bit specific about what you'd like. Some of them not going to, they're going to tell you, we can't do that because what X, Y, and Z. But all of those give you that option. The other cool thing, if you're somebody who really wants to blow your friends away and really hit the ball far and break a driver head for them, there are still some 600 plus cubic centimeter driver heads available out on some of those companies. And, you come up to the first tee and it looks like you got a loaf of bread.
What do you think about the crank drivers?
Crank drivers are good drivers. They're expensive.
There's a lot of hype to them, especially right now.
Yeah. Again, I don't, most of the companies that I named, except for Epon, you could probably pick up a driver for somewhere between $100 and $140, and they're all designed specifically by the company, or they're designers who work with the company. They're all they all are achieving similar things as far as the face designs and stuff like that. All of them are I would not hesitate to put one into play if I no longer could have my Tour Dynamic head. I played with the Wishon driver while we were designing our Tour Dynamic, and every once in a while I'd go back and forth with my Wishon because I could hit it well, and it gave me great distance and tremendous accuracy. So all of them are well designed. The only thing is when you show up on the first tee, somebody might go, "What's that?" Just like your 3-wood.
Right.
How awful was your 3-wood?
My original one?
No, the one that we built.
Oh, people would come up to me all the time because I put a TaylorMade head cover on it. And they would go, "That's not Taylor. What TaylorMade is that?" They go, "Is that your burner?" I go, "It's kind of like my burner. That's why I got it." I love my burner so much that I got one that looks like it and was better. But yeah, I got a lot of comments about that 3-wood. Everybody was, "How could you play that?" Because I can. I like it. It fits me.
Yeah, and that's the key. You can get what you need. You don't have to get what they're selling.
Exactly.
There's, I was on Monark's website. I think they offer 55 different driver heads.
Wow.
They offer 33 different iron heads.
How do you even go through which? That's yeah.
Well, and that leads us to one of the questions. You want to look at the description, because all of them will tell you what it is. They're going to tell you something about the construction. You're looking for. You do not want to see the word titanium alloy, because titanium alloy is generally short for aluminum. You don't want a titanium alloy. You'll find, wow, it's incredible. The head only costs $19.95. There's a reason. But you want to look at the description. You'll see sometimes things like cup face. I don't know if people understand what cup face means, but if you think of a regular driver head, it generally means that if you took the face, it goes back maybe, enough to be welded. Let me see if I can find a driver. So if you're looking at the face actually ends probably right up in here. And it's like a little cup, and then it's welded. Most drivers are 4 parts welded together. Okay. You can't find where is that, but there are usually 4 parts welded together. And for a long time, cup faces, They cost a little bit more to do. Are they a better face? Well, because of other discoveries about thicknesses and varying the thickness, they're similar in a nature. But you'll see some that will advertise, we have a cup face driver. That's not a bad thing. It's not they're just telling you how it was made. You want to look at things like how tall is it? Usually they'll give you that information. How wide's the face? You can get a ruler out if you can, look, 87 millimeters, and you can hold it up to your own driver and go, oh, okay, that's how big that is. Usually they're going to tell you volume. Again, like our head, when most people look at our head, they don't think it's a 460 head because we built it tall. But if you look at the bottom of the club, we rolled a lot of this away and a lot of that away so that we could stay in the 460 number without, violating the rules of golf that way. But it gives you if they give you the length and the width, the breadth of the club, it gives you an idea. Things like face angle. You want to know what the face angle is. Most of the time, most drivers, if it's around 9-10 degrees of loft, it's going to be square 90% of the time. You get up into a little bit higher lofts, most of them are going to be slightly closed, and they'll tell you that number. They're going to give you lofts. Thing to understand, the difference between a 9-degree driver and a 10-degree driver, for if you're listening to us and you're not out on tour, is not significant, because the reason you're not on tour, you don't hit it in the same spot time after time after time after time after time. If you take your regular driver and you go this much higher or lower than you hit the last one, you'll get a different trajectory because the lofts on the face are different across the face in this position. So having a 9-degree on center versus a 10-degree on center, you're not going to see a significant launch angle difference if you're hitting it a half an inch above center. Are you going to notice, got that one 2.5 feet higher? Not going to happen. The spin difference, you'll see, the advertisement, low spin driver. If they say low spin and high launch, that's like saying, put your seat back forward. Makes no sense. If it's going up in the air, that means there's more loft. If there's more loft, and what causes that, the center of gravity is deeper in the head. So center of gravity tries to line up with center of gravity. So if the center of gravity is back, in this area, and so that means the head is going to try to twist in that direction, it's going to add loft. So if they say it's a high launching, low spin, it can't do both. Generally speaking, if you're somebody who tends to fade the ball, you do not want a low center of gravity or a center of gravity that is considered low launching, because that generally means they move the weight forward. And that generally means when you're swinging that the center of gravity is going to be going slightly left of the target line, which is going to cause you to end up hitting a fade. Back in the day when TaylorMade came up with their loft up program, I can't think of the name of the driver, but that was the biggest problem. They would go right because of the low launch for the average golfer. Let's see what else. You might see something about a responsive channel. I don't know if you remember those, Josh. Adams had that little groove on the bottom of,
speed slots.
Speed slot. Well,
yes.
Some companies will call it a regressive, responsive channel.
I remember. Yes, I do remember those. When I was first getting into golf, I had the Top Flight Gamers. That's what I had. Those green and black, atrocious looking clubs that I somehow really loved. They had speed pockets, I think is what they called it, or the speed zone or something. But yeah, I remember our buddies used to joke around and be like, you just hit that faster because you had the speed grooves.
The whole idea behind it was Adams was the first probably who came out with that. And TaylorMade bought Adams, I think, for that reason, because they started stealing their patent with the the RBZ drivers and fairway woods. They had that little channel. It's basically the idea is to allow the face to flex slightly so that you smush the ball less. So it's some, another technology. The major manufacturers, you can't use the same thing year after year after year after year after year after year after year because we didn't make any major changes. We didn't get the newest, the greatest, slice of bread ever.
Right.
The slice of bread will eat itself, versus the old slice of bread, which would only eat half of itself. So you'll see things like that, things to look at. Do they have weight screws? Not that the weight screws will do anything. Because again, if you're not hitting it exactly the same place over and over and over, and if you're not, most of the weight screws are going to be under 10, 12 grams. If you're not swinging over 115 miles an hour, it doesn't matter. But it's a great way to be able to build the driver a little bit shorter and use it for swing weight. When I was at the Golf Academy of America in Carlsbad, I had a driver I could put 20 grams in the toe, 2 grams in the heel, and I would have guys who were slicers hit that. That should cause you to slice more, but it didn't. And then I would flip the weights, and guess what their ball flight looked like? The same. And in fact, most of the time they would tell me, oh, the heel has got the heavier weight. And I go, you're right, it's in the toe. The average golfer is not going to be able to distinguish that. It doesn't do that much. That's why they've all kind of run away from it, because people were, they'd go out. I'd have people coming in, trying to get 14 grams in the toe to stop this, or put 14 grams in the heel to stop this. And then they come back in. It didn't work. Yeah, because you use the whole face and it's not going to affect anything, and you don't swing fast enough for it to really matter. You need 30 plus grams for that to do something. The other thing, again, I mentioned earlier, if you want to see if things are conforming, you can go to the USGA website. If you're going to be playing in the US Open soon, or you're, playing in a big member guest and you don't want somebody to be testing looking in at your driver and saying, it's non-conforming, I've never heard of that. You can go to the website and see if indeed they sent it in. Not every driver is sent in because it's an expensive process. You have to send them ahead when you're making it. And, at that point, I think, what was it? The first 5 heads cost us $8,000 or $9,000, and one of them went to the USGA. So thoughts, Josh, about drivers? We're getting long. Should we come back and talk about wedges and other things another day, or should we plow through?
Why not? Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So woods, fairway woods, same ideas. The only other thing that I would be concerned about with a fairway wood is looking at the face height, because the lower the face height, the lower the center of gravity. So if you're somebody who struggles getting the ball up in the air, you want a little lower face. The other thing that you can look at is how far back does the head go? How deep does it go? The deeper it goes, the further back the center of gravity, the more that it's going to help you get the ball up in the air. Is it going to make you be able to carry it over that tree from 50 yards out? No. Now, if you couldn't do it before, you're not going to do it now. It's not going to make that much of a difference, but it does make it a little bit easier. Again, looking at, things like lofts, a 3-wood can be anywhere from, I've found them at 13 degrees, and I find them at 16 and 17 degrees. There's no set number for 3-woods, just like there's no set number for drivers. But the big thing to look at is if you are, fitting something into your bag, is to make sure that what you're fitting fits. You got a strong 4-wood and it's 16 degrees. Do you need to be carrying a 14-degree 3-wood? It's not going to do what you think it's going to do for you. So the other thing to look at is the weight. And also, a lot of times they'll talk one of the reasons I love Wishon heads, I can add 27 grams to the head. I can make you a 41-inch long 3-wood and probably keep the swing weight at D2, D3. A lot of the major companies are 43.5. And most people can't hit those. So looking at the weight, how much does it weigh? A 3-wood generally, builds at 43 inches is usually somewhere around 208 grams. If it's got a weight screw that I can add, some more weight. Or don't be afraid of our favorite gift to golf, lead tape. Lead tape is a wonderful thing to add. Let's see. Wedges. One of the things that you'll find some companies that make, forged wedges. You'll have some companies that make, their cast wedges. And I'll be honest, I've never been able to feel the difference. What you feel is the vibration from the shaft. Generally speaking, a lot of the shafts and wedges that you find in stores, a lot of times they're a little tiny bit softer than what you would expect them. The labeling, this is a stiff, might not be a stiff, might be kind of a strong, good regular, which tends to make the vibrations a little less harsh when you mishit it. But I've had students who, hitting 5-irons. I had a forged 5-iron and a cast 5-iron, and they were identical and had exactly the same shafts put into them, same grip, same swing weight, and they could guess right 50% of the time which was which. Clay Long, when he was building wedges, you can check his stuff out on rollyourball.com. Clay was building wedges, and he went out on tour, and he was giving his wedges to tour players to hit. And they, I love this. It feels really soft. They were all 431 steel. They were just stainless steel heads. They looked really good. And the greatest thing about a stainless steel head, you're not going to wear it out quite as quickly as you're going to wear out a forged head. When we used to get people who'd buy forged heads, and I would ask this important question: how much do you practice? And they, a lot. What club do you use? What iron do you like to warm up with the most? Oh, my 7-iron. At the end of the fitting, I would go, now, how many sets of clubs have you worn out the 7-iron, but the rest of the clubs are in good shape? Well, that happens a lot. Why don't we build you a 7-iron for practice and then build you a 7-iron for your set? You can wear out the practice club rather than your gamer. And wow, what an idea. So if you're somebody who practices a lot with wedges, that's one problem with a forged head, because I don't know about where you practice, but if you're practicing off of a mat, what do you think happens every time that wedge goes into that mat and goes through it? It's polishing it. What does polishing mean? Sanding it off. If you're on the range and you're hitting wedge after wedge after wedge, if your driving range is like ours, a lot of sand out there, sand on the golf balls. What is that going to do every time you hit a wedge? It takes off some of the finish. So something to think about with the wedges, but things you want to think about. Sole width. Generally speaking, either you'll see it in a picture, or they'll give you that information. The wider the sole, the less bounce you tend to need, because the width of the sole acts as bounce. What's the weight? Especially you taller people. If you want to build your 50, 56, and 60 all the same length, well, what's the weight difference between them? If there's a weight difference that's not significant, that's not a problem. But sometimes you'll find them 8-10 grams different. Well, 10 grams different, you're not going to build them all the same, because a couple of them are going to be really heavy. What do they say about the grooves? One of the things that you'll see a lot of is micro grooves. The grooves are simply a place where debris can get, so that's not in between the club face and the ball. And so looking at the types of grooves, that's a good thing. With irons, you want to look at loft progressions and lofts. Most of the companies like Takomo, they tend to have strong lofted irons. But a lot of companies are a little bit more traditional, like 2008, 2010 lofts. So like a 30-degree 6-iron versus a 26-degree 6-iron. That's one club difference. If you're a low ball hitter, that might be a good thing. Same thing, like looking at the length of the blade and the toe height and, is it a hollow body construction? All that is giving you information about the perimeter weighting and, the longer the blade, a blade this long, you hit it out on the toe, it's harder to turn than if it's, a smaller blade, you miss it a little bit, the blade will turn, a little harder to control. Looking at the weights should be usually 6-7 grams between clubs. That's something to make sure of. Looking at a picture, look at the back design of the club. If there's more mass out on the toe and in the heel, what does that mean? More forgiveness. Straight across blade, less forgiveness, unless they tell you it's a hollow body club. Then usually a lot of the companies will show you a picture of the internals and you'll see, there's a lot of mass on the toe and on the heel and it's hollow in the middle. Another thing to do in all of these, read the comments. Understand, it's like golf now. It cracks me up sometimes. I couldn't believe, I paid $37.50. The greens were not running at a 13. And the traps were firm, and I couldn't believe it that there were some dry spots on the fairway in Phoenix in July. Where are you going to play where the greens are running at 13 in Phoenix these days, Josh?
Nowhere. Unless you're at a really, really nice country club that you want to pay $150,000 initiation fee and $3,000 a month dues, by all means.
But you see, so when you're reading the reviews, you got to keep in mind who's the person doing the reviewing. It's just like when you read hotel reviews, it was awful. There was a fly on the floor. Okay. That made the whole hotel night stay awful because you found a fly on the floor. Interesting. So I would encourage you, read the reviews. What are people saying? Remember also, a lot of those people built their own and they chose the wrong shaft for themselves. So, but a lot of the reviews are pretty good. They'll be on, there's some good, honest reviews because I was looking at them and I would say 95% of the reviews were pretty much what I would expect. Let's see. The last thing, putters. Big thing you need to understand about putters. Back when I was a kid, back when we used to ride in cars like the Flintstones, putters weighed 315 grams. Today, putters weigh anywhere from 330 grams to 400. That's the only club in the bag that has that kind of weight distribution difference. Every other club, most 5-irons are going to weigh plus or minus 3 or 4 grams. Putters all over the place. So that's the first thing to look at. Am I building this short? Am I building this long? If I'm building it short, I want it probably a little heavier. If I'm building it long, I probably don't want it too heavy because it might feel like I have a sledgehammer if I'm going to try to build it. I think I need a 36-inch putter and I'm going to put a lightweight grip on it and I'm going to use a 400-gram head. That might feel a little uncomfortable. So looking at the weight. Okay, that's the first thing. Look at a picture of the head, and I grabbed a couple of my putters here. One of the things to look for, where, they don't have a shaft usually in it, but if I can tell that this part would come down to right about there. Okay, center of the face is there. This is lining up with this. So what does that tell me? Face wants to close at impact. When I'm putting with this putter, I have to play the ball out here because my tendency is I already can do that. So having a putter that helps me do that, probably not something I need. On the other hand, my Kronos putter, for those of you who really want a designer high-end putter, this is milled out of one piece of metal. This is not welded on. It is part of the original metal. But again, if you look at this, where does it come to? Just about the center of the face. This has minimal hang, and that's the term for it. And we talked about it in our putting episode. So this is a little bit more straight back and straight through. It will close just a hair. But you can see that looking at the putters. Now, the thing you need to understand is some of the putters will talk about needing a double bend or a single bend shaft. If it's talking about that, you're going to need to do that. And I would guess that for your very first club to build, that would be challenging. I would let them build it for you. because to try to get that thing lined up perfectly is not an easy task for your first attempt. But look at the weight distribution. Look at the aiming alignments, because usually they'll give you a picture from on top looking down at it. Josh, how much, you like black? You still like black?
I prefer black, yeah.
So if I gave you, showed you a picture of a really nice, high, shiny putter, you're probably not too interested because it doesn't fit your eye. Well, that's one of the things you need to look at. For me, there was a putter that I would just fuss over. It was a Kronos putter. It was a great putter. I loved the way it felt. I could putt well with it when I didn't care. But if I was going to play and really want to line everything up, there were a series of lines that would have to line up. And that would tell you were, and everything was, the putter was flat. Everything was in good position. And that information was way too much. I would just get frozen looking at it. So you want to look at, what does the design look like? If it has more weight out on the heel and the toe, what does that tell you? Believe it or not, people mishit putters all day long. A little bit more forgiveness. Doesn't have a whole lot of mass out on the toe, not as much forgiveness. And then you obviously can pick your own type of grip and play around with how big of a grip do I want. But the component world is there to help. It's, like I said, $80 for a driver, brand new, titanium face. It's a wonderful driver. Not that I wouldn't say it's the best sounding driver in the world, but I wasn't buying it for sound. And I knew it wasn't going to sound all that great because the bottom was pretty flat. Not a whole lot of movement in it, and that little movement in in a driver head, like we talked about, this right in here. This is just for sound. It looks nice, but it was for sound. It helps break up the vibration. So, thoughts, Josh? I've been talking way too much.
I think you talked just enough. No, it's a lot. People, you don't really understand how much really goes into this stuff. So it's interesting to hear you talk about all these little bits and pieces, because it's really just the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more to it, and that's the beauty of it. It really is in its own. It's a science, but also it's an art, and everybody has their own interpretation on what they like, their opinions, their preferences, and golf. With all the things that it is, can still pertain to those people who have specific needs. So it's just nice to know and have this information that there is a possibility of getting the right thing, the right fit for you, and understanding why that is. So I think it's important.
And the whole thing that I can do, just like the 6-iron that Josh didn't get to see. Should I get my 6-iron so you can see it now?
I can see it now.
Okay, because I forgot didn't have it with me the other day when we saw each other on the golf course. So this is a Golfworks. There's the face, top line.
Oh yeah,
like that. You can see my glad tape.
Oh yeah, I like that.
This is my $70 golf club.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That looks really good.
I love the way it feels. It's a hollow body head. I like the fact that it's not a super long blade.
Does it feel like it's forged?
It feels very soft because it's a forged head, but it's a hollow body forged head. So
right, that's why I asked, because sometimes companies that do that, they still feel a bit clicky.
Yep. No, this is feels incredible. Thought the other day playing at Las Colinas, number 8 was playing 157 into a little bit of a breeze, and I hit the 6-iron. It was the first time I hit it that day, and I stuck it like 3 feet from the hole.
That's, I can't complain with that.
No, I mean, my PXGs are fine. But I'm looking at, I really love the way that looks. It's a little thinner top line. It's just, I love the club. And again, the price is right. I not going to go out and pay $200 for an iron.
It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it nowadays, and
I'd
especially
rather play $130 worth of golf.
exactly, especially with the way that trend is going. Just tough times all over the world. But yeah, it's now that I have somewhat of an array of knowledge to this. I still see people fall for the same old mistakes time after time, and it's simply because it's just easy to. No one knows any different. There's not stuff like this being mainstream out there. So yeah, that's why I like seeing companies like Takomo and New Level Golf that's taken off, especially here in the Valley. I have a couple buddies of mine that play golf at a high amateur level / pro level that are sponsored by New Level. And they love them. They love the clubs and they enjoy the equipment. So, and I've been doing these experiments with you, figuring out my preferences and experimenting with what I like, for the last 3-4 years. And it really is, like I said, still just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to it. But, when you know the general idea that things start to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't have to cost you 3 arms and 2 legs.
No.
You can play around with it and go, like the reason for the lead tape on the back. I wanted to see what happens if I make it a little head lighter. What happens if I make it a little head heavier? It's much easier to do than I don't like when
and it makes practice a little bit more fun.
Yeah. It's 116 outside and it's 132 in the garage.
Sure.
I don't want to spend time in the garage.
All you want to do is create shots. You just want to go out there and test out some things.
Exactly. You can do it pretty darn easy. And I would just encourage, if you have questions, shoot them our way. I'll be gone for a couple weeks. When I'm gone, I'll put up a message saying that I'm gone and I will get back to you. But I would encourage you, look them up, see if you see something that causes you to go, I like that. I mean, that was the whole reason for that head. I was flipping through online. I was looking for something for another golfer, and I saw that head, and I go, wow, I like the way that looks. And so I'm strongly considering, maybe when I go to Scotland. I'm still waiting. I haven't gotten a response yet from anyone telling me what golf courses. We're going to be in Edinburgh. That's where our base is going to be. We're going to try to go out the Royal and Ancient. I don't know that we'll play the old course at $430 a round. But there are a few courses that I was online this morning for like an hour and a half, and I only looked at 45 different golf courses within an hour.
Only. Yeah.
But I think they're all waiting for Americans to come in so that they can make their budget, because everybody is.
They have a quota.
I thought our prices were bad.
Well, there's the golf.
When the next time, Josh, you'll be back in school, right?
You know what? I'm thinking it'll be around that time. Yeah, it'll be around that time.
If I don't see you beforehand, have a good first day of school. My grandkids start school tomorrow.
Wow.
I can't believe that. Yeah.
Wow.
July 16th, first day of school.
I don't miss that.
No, I miss first day after Labor Day. But yeah, they start school tomorrow.
Crazy.
So anyway, got to hit the road. Going to have some pork chops that I cooked up yesterday.
There we go.
And look at some of those shafts you brought over. And have a great week of being other people. And God bless to all of our listeners. Again, if you have questions, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to entertain it.
Thank you all for watching. Take care.
God bless.
Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to email us. In order for us to continue equipping you with great knowledge and content, consider blessing our show financially by checking out the links in the description below. See you next time on Club Fitting Chronicles.